The day the petrodollar died, and America didn't notice. Let me start with a question that should make every American, every investor, every saver, stop breathing for a moment. What happens when the country that kept the US dollar alive for 50 years decides it doesn't need the dollar anymore? Because that moment isn't coming, it already happened, and somehow, almost nobody noticed. For half a century, every barrel of Saudi oil, the lifeblood of the global economy, was priced in US dollars. Every single one. Since 1974, when Henry Kissinger struck the deal that created the petrodollar, the rule was simple. If you want oil, you need dollars. It didn't matter if you were Japan, Germany, India, or Brazil. You held dollar reserves, you traded in dollars, you participated in the dollar system. Oil wasn't just a commodity, it was the foundation of an invisible empire. Not military bases, not aircraft carriers, not sanctions. Oil priced in dollars. That system made America richer than its productivity deserved. It kept interest rates low, made debt cheap, made imports affordable, and allowed Washington to borrow endlessly without paying the price. But in January 2025, something happened that should have rattled every financial building from Wall Street to Washington. Saudi Arabia sold oil to China in yuan. Not as a test, not a small symbolic transaction, 1 million barrels, paid entirely in Chinese currency. No dollars involved, no American banks involved, no SWIFT, no Federal Reserve influence. China paid through its own payment system. Saudi Arabia received yuan directly in its own accounts. And, here's the part that should terrify Washington, they didn't immediately convert the yuan back into dollars. No, they kept the yuan, they used some to buy Chinese goods, they invested some in yuan-denominated bonds, they treated it like a reserve asset. A 50-year rule was broken quietly, casually, almost politely. And that's when I realized this wasn't a glitch, this wasn't an experiment, this was the beginning of the end of the petrodollar. The shift behind the curtain. Look, this is not some isolated deal. The infrastructure for this moment has been under construction for nearly a decade. Saudi Arabia didn't wake up one morning and say, let's use yuan. No, they prepared for this. In 2016, they issued their first yuan-denominated bonds. In 2022, they expanded the program. By 2024, they had issued over 50 billion yuan worth of bonds. In 2018, China launched yuan-based crude futures. By 2025, trading volume exploded, hundreds of thousands of contracts daily. Saudi Arabia joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They integrated banking systems. They built cross-border payment connections. The entire architecture needed to end dollar-exclusive oil pricing already existed. January 2025 was simply the moment they turned it on. And here's the even bigger shift. Saudi Arabia now sees the yuan as a reserve currency. That is the moment the dollar lost its monopoly on global energy. Why? Saudi Arabia did this. The brutal truth. Let me tell you the truth Washington doesn't want to say out loud. Saudi Arabia did not abandon the dollar because they hate America. They didn't do it for ideology. They didn't do it for politics. They did it because China is now more important to them than the United States. In 2024, China bought 1.7 million barrels per day of Saudi oil. The US bought under 500,000. China is a 3 times bigger customer. Which customer do you keep happy? China settles payments instantly through CIP same day. Dollar transactions take 48-72 hours through multiple banks. China buys oil. Saudi Arabia buys Chinese solar panels, construction materials, electronics, cars, and then there's the Russia lesson. In 2022, the US and Europe froze $300 billion of Russian reserves. Every country saw the same warning. If America disagrees with your foreign policy, your dollar reserves can vanish overnight. Saudi Arabia is not stupid. Neither are the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, India, Brazil. Everyone learned the same lesson. Holding too many dollars is a geopolitical risk. Holding yuan, America can't touch it. Saudi Arabia simply made a rational decision based on risk, efficiency, and self-interest. This is how empires lose their grip, not through war, but through relevance. The domino mechanism, how dollar dominance dies. Now let me show you the domino effect that Washington is pretending doesn't exist. Step 1. Oil begins settling in yuan, not just Saudi Arabia and China. The UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, they will follow. They always follow the Saudi lead. Step 2. Other exporters jump in. Russia already bypasses the dollar. Iran too. Venezuela would love to. Suddenly 20–40% of global oil trade isn't in dollars. Step 3. Countries need fewer dollar reserves. If you don't need dollars to buy oil, you don't need to hold as many dollars. Central banks slowly reduce treasury holdings. Step 4. U.S. interest rates rise. Lower demand for treasuries. Not higher yields. Every 1% increase in average rates costs the U.S. government $380 billion a year. Step 5. The dollar weakens permanently. A weaker dollar trod more expensive imports. America imports $3.2 trillion annually. Even a 20% weaker dollar, from a 20% pay cut on everything the U.S. buys. Step 6. Inflation becomes structural. The Fed must raise rates further. Debt service explodes. The cycle continues. This is the death spiral. Not a sudden crash. Not hyperinflation. Just a slow, grinding, unstoppable erosion of American financial privilege. All beginning with one decision: Saudi oil no longer requires dollars. The partnership that makes this permanent, and here's where it gets even worse. Saudi Arabia and China didn't just do a currency swap, they signed a comprehensive strategic partnership. Energy, infrastructure, technology, finance, all integrated, all yuan-based. Let me give you the highlights. 1. $10 billion Saudi oil refinery in China paid in yuan, run in yuan, supplied in yuan. 1. Chinese companies building Saudi megaprojects NEOM, the Red Sea project, Giga cities, hundreds of billions in contracts, paid in yuan. 1. Chinese technology embedded in Saudi infrastructure, Huawei 5G, smart city systems, AI platforms. 1. A joint $20 billion investment fund, half yuan, half rial. No dollars anywhere in the structure. This isn't diversification, this is realignment. A new monetary loop is being built. Oil, yuan, Chinese goods, Saudi projects, oil again, a closed circuit, dollar-free. Once a loop like this becomes efficient, it becomes permanent. The 2030 world, what this looks like in 5 years. Here's where all this leads. By 2030, 40% of global oil trade settles outside dollars. Yuan handles roughly 25%. Global demand for dollar reserves falls by $1.5 trillion. U.S. interest rates average 5%. Federal interest payments exceed $900 billion per year. The dollar weakens 20–25%. Imports become dramatically more expensive. Inflation runs at 4–5% even in normal years. Growth stagnates because borrowing is expensive. America remains wealthy, yes, but the era of effortless prosperity ends. Cheap credit? Gone. Unlimited deficits? Gone. Dollar privilege? Gone. This is not collapse, it's corrosion, slow, steady, unstoppable, and it began the moment Saudi Arabia realized it didn't need the dollar to sell oil. The ugly irony: America did this to itself. Decades of erratic foreign policy, treating allies like clients, threatening sanctions, weaponizing the dollar system, ignoring economic partnerships in favor of military posturing, while China did something simple: buy oil, pay on time, don't interfere, invest billions. Saudi Arabia didn't betray America, they outgrew America. They followed the money, they followed the customer, they followed efficiency. This is how empires lose not battles, but relevance. The final warning. The petrodollar system that underpinned American power for 50 years is not collapsing tomorrow. It's not exploding in a crisis. It's fading, transaction by transaction, contract by contract, partnership by partnership. And the most powerful empire of the modern era hasn't even noticed the foundation cracking under its feet. We are living through the most important shift in global finance since 1971. Most people won't understand it until they feel it. And by then, it will be too late. If you want more deep dive videos like this, the ones no one else is telling you, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment below, and tell me what you think ends the dollar's dominance first. Saudi Arabia, China, US debt, something else? Your engagement helps this message reach more people who need to hear it.